Welcome in to the PFF podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. It is our Mailbag edition, Sam, and credit to our listeners. Every week, bringing it with more emails, more tweets. We got a lot of good stuff today.
There's always at least one every week that is awesome. Fantastic email that makes me laugh and makes me think. That's what the Mailbag episode of the podcast does. It makes you think. Things that nobody else is thinking about, possibly for good reason.
Oh, I love it. I think it gets us thinking. It gets our listeners thinking.
That's what we do.
For us, the workload for the week is really tight. Like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then it loosens up a little bit around this time. And that's my favorite time to just kind of sit back and read these things and surf through them. So let's do it.
Yes.
A crazy trade deadline.
Yeah.
Good job, NFL, for having a more exciting trade deadline. We've talked about that on here. We want more player for player. We want more just get rid of players, bring players in. So a lot of stuff here. We'll start with a question, then we'll hit on some of the other trades that occurred. Football season on Twitter.
That's his name. That's his handle.
That's his name?
Football
season on Twitter. So do you think the chance to have a franchise quarterback on the roster is worth the second-round pick that the San Francisco 49ers gave up for Jimmy Garoppolo? Sam?
Yeah, I think the question with Garoppolo, we really have seen nothing of Jimmy Garoppolo. I was telling you on the ride over to our voiceover this morning that assuming Garoppolo doesn't play this weekend, which is probably likely, the guy's just in the building,
right?
And say C.J. Beathard starts this weekend, by the end of this weekend, C.J. Beathard would have more NFL snaps under his belt than Jimmy Garoppolo does.
That's crazy.
And Beathard's been starting for like a fortnight. You guys don't have fortnight.
3 weeks. For 3 weeks. This will be 2 weeks. This will be his third week.
Okay. Yeah, he's only been starting a couple of weeks, and the guy's going to end up this weekend with more snaps than Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jimmy Garoppolo's been around for 4 years, so we feel like we know that he is. He's got a lot more future.
He's got a lot more preseason action too.
He does. But as I said then, that preseason to me is more of a red flag thing. If you're not playing with the starters, which most of these guys aren't going to be, as long as you don't stink out the joint and raise a red flag of, well, this guy played terribly in preseason, that's a problem. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that should be a positive reinforcement. You basically went out there, you did fine, but it's against backups, it's with backups, it's against vanilla defenses. There's so many asterisks that I can't use it to reinforce anything positive. But if you don't look good in those situations, I think it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you look spectacular, I think that helps.
But again,
Jimmy G hasn't really.
And I think
he looks great in his regular season games.
Yeah, and I think the spectacular thing, though, is very much tied to the starters. If you look spectacular against backups that are all over the place, yeah. But yeah, so we're talking about basically a game and a half in which Jimmy G's looked good to start that Tom Brady suspension last year, and we just don't know what that means. Maybe that is a game and a half of what he is, and the injury simply robbed us of another 2 games of fantastic starting, and he is going to be the answer for the 49ers. He is the truth, the light, and the way. Having said that, maybe we just got a game and a half of good play, and he didn't have a chance to stink it up after that. Jacoby Brissett, who came in and started for him after he got hurt, he's now got about 10 starts, I think, under his belt, and there are 4 really good grades at PFF in that 10-start thing. So we've got at least twice as much good tape from Jacoby Brissett as we have out there on Jimmy G, but we've also got some bad out there because he's played 10 games. He's had a chance to show the bad Brissett as well. So I think, we know more about him than we know of Jimmy Garoppolo, including the good stuff. I just think we're dealing with such small sample sizes that it is a total gamble. So the question is it worth a second-round pick, a high second-round pick as well, for that chance that this guy in 2 games looks like a franchise quarterback, is a second-round pick, a high second-round pick, worth the gamble that he actually is, that that's what he is? I think it probably is. You don't have one now.
Yeah.
So let's throw a second-round pick at it. Let's take the shot. And maybe, because the bottom line is, if you're right, and if he does turn out to be the franchise quarterback, it's way worth that. And if you're not dramatically worse off. You're a second-round pick down. It's a valuable pick, but you're still screwed without a quarterback. So. Right. I think it's worth a shot.
That's the thing you're going to keep hearing me say. I said it on the Quarterback Analysis podcast recorded with Zach. So speaking about Jimmy G, we got into some more depth about why Zach likes Jimmy G. I gave another quarterback comparison for him. So go listen to that episode as well for more just in-depth breakdown about it. My quick synopsis is, yes, it is worth the the upside to getting a quarterback, the reward to getting a quarterback so far outweighs the risk that absolutely it's worth it. Here's what I'm thinking, though, from the 49ers' point of view. I don't think they're out of the draft quarterback market. I think this is a chance to see Jimmy G in your system, to just lock him up, see what you can get. You don't have to re-sign him. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to. They clearly traded for him with the intention to sign him. But I don't think it's crazy to at least, continue to dabble in draftable quarterbacks and see what's there. That's how I would attack the quarterback position, with many, many resources. Because if Jimmy G's not the guy, hedge your bet. If Jimmy G is the guy, great. Then maybe you have a backup that you could flip, and you're getting that second-round pick back at some point for a guy that you invested in. So attack the QB position with resources. All right, let's fly through these trades. I want to get your quick thoughts. Sam, Dwayne Brown, left tackle from Houston, traded to Seattle. What does this do for the Seahawks?
This makes the Seahawks into Super Bowl contenders. That sounds relatively crazy for a move like this that's on an offensive lineman. But the Seahawks were going to be playoff contenders anyway. They're, 6-2 now, 5-2? They are already going to be taking that division. They're going to end up playing January football. But the games that kill them are the games where Russell Wilson goes over that 45% pressure barrier, which happens a lot because that offensive line is so terrible. Over the past 2 years, they have had the worst left tackle situation in the NFL, regardless of which one of their project guys has been starting. They have upgraded from disaster to anything around average is a colossal upgrade for them.
And Brown's better.
And if Brown gets back to anything like his best, it's an indescribably great upgrade. But even if he's just okay, if he gets back, if he's just on the field and is even fine, it's a huge upgrade.
Just show up. Can I use plus minus at all? Because I've got a great number.
Well, no, you can't do that. You get in trouble for that.
In our old plus minus system, just for our millions and millions of listeners between us, Seattle's left tackles over their last 18 games, minus 80. Over minus 80.
Yeah, that's...
And I believe the worst left tackle season we've seen is in that minus 50, 55 range.
I don't think it's even that bad, is it? It's under 50, I think.
Is it under 50? So I'm just trying to bring this up for perspective, because sometimes the 0 to 100 captures it when we say a guy's like a 25.
Yeah.
But this really captures it. Minus 80 between George Fant's 12 games last year and Reese Odiambo's 7 games this year. Minus 80. I think that's 18 or 19 games.
It's difficult to overstate just how bad that left tackle situation has been. So to get, we talked ad nauseum before about how your offensive line is not about the best parts or even what it is across the board. It's how bad is your weakest link. And their weakest link has been wet tissue paper. I mean, it's just destruction. So if you go from anywhere near average, it's a huge upgrade. And Russell Wilson, when he's had time, has been phenomenal.
Wet tissue paper is everyone's weak link, if we're honest. Jay Ajayi, how did he change his pronunciation a couple years ago?
I've only ever gone with Ajayi.
Ajayi. He changed it a couple years ago. But he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, 4th-round pick, I believe, getting sent back to the Miami Dolphins. Ajayi, a guy, every time we mention him, we just say, he just does way better than his offensive line gives him, and he turns -2 into 4-yard gains. What's he going to do behind this Eagles offensive line, which is much better?
Well, it's interesting because LeGarrette Blount is averaging basically 4 yards per carry after contact this year. He's averaging more yards after contact in 2017 than Le'Veon Bell is averaging total yards in 2017.
Your Monday 6 stat?
Yeah, so LeGarrette Blount is on fire. You have to assume that's not a long-term proposition, that at some point LeGarrette Blount is probably going to come down to earth a little bit, and who knows what's going to be beyond this season. So regardless, I think it makes sense. Jay Ajayi for a 4th-round pick is an absolute steal. He has been fantastic for the Dolphins since he's been starting. Behind the Eagles' offensive line, I think that should be a dramatic upgrade for him. This past week, I think he barely got 50 yards, but all of them were after contact. He's been dragging himself to yardage all season. The Eagles, even without Jason Peters, have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, and the big V at left tackle is at least a road grading machine, so it's not a drop-off in the run game. I think that's a great move for the Eagles. For the Dolphins, I don't really get why they did it, even if the concerns about his chronic knee injuries come up, but that seems like a lot of spin as why we moved this guy. I just don't really see the logic for them.
I think the logic is he's averaging 3.4 yards per carry in their system, in their current situation. Is anybody going to do that much worse? Last year he overcame it. He had those 200-yard games, though, against Buffalo and their terrible run defense. Maybe they're not thinking he's the same guy, even though our grade is still looking pretty good.
So this past week against Baltimore, Jai had 23 yards on 13 carries, but he gained 37 yards after contact. So he only gained 23 yards total, but he gained 37 after contact. That's how bad the blocking was for him.
So are we expecting him to go for like 5 yards per carry over here against Miami with Philadelphia?
I think there's a good chance that he's having a complete turnaround in the season and becomes one of the most productive running backs in the league.
He has been one of the worst running backs in the pass game as far as catching the ball, blocking. Those have been issues the last couple of years. I wonder if there is some redundancy there with him and LeGarrette
I think
Blount.
there definitely is.
They're both those bruising running backs essentially, and fighting for carries now.
But the Eagles have been good at separating the roles of the running backs anyway. They've had a backfield by committee for a while. They have a particular spot for a running back that isn't a factor in the pass game. I think now you've got two guys in that role, but you want to keep those guys both healthy down the stretch. These are guys. The Eagles are now a Super Bowl contender. They want a healthy guy down the stretch, regardless of who it is. So now they have some backup in there. If LeGarrette Blount gets hurt and he's not doing as well as he did down the stretch, now you've got Ajayi. If Ajayi gets hurt, you've still got Blount to go to.
That is a good way to build. I mean, if you're a Super Bowl contender, as the Eagles are now, that is a good way to build the team. Just build that depth and
and that's only this
handle
year.
all situations.
Now it makes Blount expendable going forward. So I think it doesn't make it's perfect sense for the Eagles. I'm not sure about it from the Dolphins side of things.
Kelvin Benjamin gets traded from the Carolina Panthers, a 3rd and a 7th, over to the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
so Benjamin from the Panthers to the Bills.
This makes sense with one way of looking things, and makes no sense in the other way. Buffalo definitely need receiver help. Zay Jones has not been good in his first year. He's catching like 30% of the passes thrown his way, which is abysmal. They just don't have receiving weapons. No, they don't have receiving weapons. So I get needing to add not even a number one receiver, just getting to add receiving help to that group. Kelvin Benjamin, I think, is possibly the worst stylistic receiver in the entire NFL to team with Tyrod Taylor, because Benjamin's shtick is, I'm not going to get open, but you throw it to me anyway and I'll make the catch because I'm much bigger than the guy trying to cover me.
Right.
And Tyrod's thing is, I'm not putting the ball in harm's way and I won't turn it over, and then we'll win because of that. Right? Now what you're asking him to do is just trust that this guy who isn't going to be open is going to make the catch anyway. Put the ball in harm's way because it's going to work out. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know whether he's suddenly going to become more aggressive and start putting the ball in harm's way and create more turnovers, which is going to be a huge problem for a team that leads the league in turnover differential with plus 14.
Nice job. Good stat.
Or whether you're going to have Tyrod going, no, look, this is my thing. I don't put the ball in harm's way, and therefore Kelvin Benjamin is just an ornamental addition to this offense who's just going to be running around not open the whole time. The one thing I want to bring up, though, is, what was that guy's name? Brandon Bean? The GM of the Bills, something Bean. What's his first name? Because
you're putting me on the spot.
It's not Billy, is it?
It's Bill Bean.
He was talking about the addition of Kelvin Benjamin to this team.
Brandon Bean, yeah.
Brandon Bean. There you go. See, I did know it. And he was talking about, obviously he brings size, but he had a great description for this size. He described Kelvin Benjamin as having a dense body, which is unmistakably euphemistic for he's quite a chunky guy.
He's not, but 6'5", it's tough to be chunky.
Have you not seen the pictures? He's pretty chunky.
Well, he's not skinny.
No.
He's dense.
Dense.
Dense is a good
He's
description.
A dense body type.
So Kelvin Benjamin, since college, has had the perfect quarterbacks for him.
Yeah.
He had Jameis Winston. So first off, Jameis Winston and Cam Newton, the fact that they go head-to-head twice a year, I mean, I watched the game this past weekend and did some of the analysis on it. Overthrow fest. I mean, it is just fascinating. They're just trying to, who can overthrow receivers more? So you have Jameis, that was Kelvin's college quarterback, who has no problem throwing to covered receivers, letting them make plays.
Yep.
Misses high tendency. Cam Newton, we've joked about them drafting Kelvin Benjamin only because
calibrated
Cam Newton,
too high.
He's calibrated too high because he's ready to overthrow everybody. Kelvin's tough to overthrow, even though he still has managed to do that this year. So if Benjamin isn't dominating statistically with those two quarterbacks who are willing to give him chances and, miss high up into his catch radius, then, I don't know if this is going to work out statistically. Here's the other thing, too. Kelvin Benjamin runs some very bad routes.
Yeah.
I mean, he is one of the biggest boom or bust receivers in the NFL, where he will round a route improperly, wrong depth, and you just know it's on him, and that leads to interceptions. I mean, there's 3, 4, 5 interceptions a year on passes thrown to Kelvin Benjamin that I don't think are on the quarterback.
It makes perfect sense, because if you think about it, the one thing that does not leap out at you when you talk about the maneuverability of a Mack truck, it's turning circle and the ability to be nimble.
Right.
So that's Kelvin's problem.
It looks like an effort thing too. I mean, look, there was the pick 6 against Chicago a couple weeks ago. That is Kelvin Benjamin's 6'5" receiver going up against a much smaller corner. You're trusting him to win inside and use his physicality. He doesn't. Now, the other end of it was against Tampa Bay this weekend. Cam just throws a jump ball, a well-placed jump ball in the end zone, and Kelvin goes up and gets it, and he makes a spectacular catch. So that's Kelvin Benjamin in a nutshell. There will be turnovers. If you force the ball to him, there will be turnovers, and if you force the ball to him, there will be touchdowns.
Yeah, but that's the great tension. It's you need to force the ball to Kelvin Benjamin to get the most out of him, but Tyrod Taylor is not the quarterback that likes doing that. So either you're changing Tyrod Taylor or you're wasting the guy you just traded for.
It's something to keep an eye on as we see if he fits. A.J. McCarron, we will get to him later on.
We have a question on that later. So
we will get to them later on.
The almost trade.
Oh, man, we've got a Sweden name I have to pronounce again?
Well, we did this one. He told us we pronounced it correctly. That was the one that I researched how to pronounce.
Yeah, but I don't have the...
You didn't listen
I don't have that research handy now, and I don't remember what it was.
I believe it was Jonas Lejeune.
Lejeune. All right, Jonas Lejeune from Sweden.
Yeah.
The country. You discussed the possibility that the McCourty brothers may have switched teams without telling anyone. Could it be that David has replaced Derek Carr this season?
It's so obvious. I don't know how we didn't figure this out. This is why Derek Carr has been terrible this year. It's actually David out there.
Struggling under pressure.
David Carr
seeing
out
ghosts.
there.
Too quick to check down, throwing a short pass.
Wanting to give his NFL career another shot. Felt cheated that the Houston Texans just tried to kill him with that offensive line. Went to a good offensive line in Oakland. No, still not good.
I don't hate this theory. I just think it might be like every other week is what they're doing, because every other week Derek Carr seems to be pretty good. A couple weeks ago he looked pretty good against Kansas City on Thursday Night Football. Against Buffalo it was pretty bad. I think David is just trying to look. He's just dabbling in it. I think he's too old right now to play every week, and that's why you see some good and some bad from whichever Carr guy this is, a quarterback.
Sadly, where this falls down is that they do at least look noticeably different. So you could, spot if David was there hiding.
No, that's a good point. The twin theory is a little bit cleaner.
Yes.
On Sundays, though, the helmet does conceal a lot.
Yeah, but he's going to be on
Sundays.
camera at some point in the game.
That's true.
He's going to take the helmet off on the sideline. You're going to see him, and I think you would notice if it was David in there.
It'd be very tough for David to hide his glorious hair that we see on NFL Network as well. So a decent theory, but probably not up there with the McCourty brothers.
No, I mean, that was beautiful.
Hey, guys, hate to do this to you, Sam, but I am hashtag Team Steve all day. Chalk another one up, I believe, for Steve. I have two questions for you. Do you like the way the Bears are handling Trubisky, or do you think they should be asking him to do more? And what impact do you think Dontrell Inman will have on the Bears offense? I'm going to defer that Inman question to our producer extraordinaire, Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor, who is a Chargers fan, where Dontrell Inman came over from, and therefore should know all about Dontrell Inman.
Speaking to the mic there, Taylor.
Speaking to Sam's mic.
Let's start with Inman. You don't need the... Yeah, just use the mic. Do you know how this works?
You know, this is weird. You can't see it, but this is strange for me and you.
You're speaking into the mic. You don't have the headset on, but for the listeners, they just need to hear you.
All right. So Dontrell Inman, watched a lot of tape here with the Chargers. He, if you've ever played Madden, you ever see that 75 overall receiver, and you see the little spider chart. You're like, well, he's not really good at anything, but he's not bad at anything.
Right.
And Phillip Rivers and him had beautiful chemistry, work in the middle of the field, that mid-range 10 to 15-yard route. And that's how he made his living for about 3 years. So that's what you're getting.
Just a middle of the pack, just standard average receiver across the board.
If you were making a player from scratch, a default player, if you changed none of the settings from when it preloads, that is Dontrell Inman. Which, again, is not a bad thing.
Well, that's an upgrade in Chicago, so that's what we're getting to. Like, that is an upgrade for the Bears.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. That's a great breakdown. I like it. PFF couldn't have done it better.
The other thing to add to that, though, is he's tall. He's a big, classic Chargers receiver, and then he's a giant. And basically anybody that runs an intermediate crossing route is going to have great chemistry with Phillip Rivers. If you're happy to run across the middle of the field and look for the ball, Phillip Rivers is going to love you.
79.3 grade for Inman last season. So that sounds about right. That sounds like a good synopsis. As far as handling how the Bears are handling Trubisky, I think there are game flow situations, like when he only threw the ball 7 times a few weeks ago. I don't think that was the worst thing in the world. They were sitting there with a 2-touchdown lead for the majority of the game, and I don't think they went into the game saying, hey, we're going to figure out a way to, keep the ball out of Trubisky's hands except for 7 passes. So I think it's more of a game flow type of issue. They have to continue to roll him out and do those things that he's good at. He's shown the ability to make some of those difficult third down conversions. You just need more opportunities. So I think they're handling him okay. I don't think they're trying to, be too careful with him.
No. I think it makes sense. I think they're on the right track.
All right, we got another good one here. This one's for Steve. Who would you take in a traditional Irish dance-off between Alex Collins, that's the Ravens running back, and Sam? If you guys did not see Thursday Night Football, they showed some pretty good Irish dancing from Alex Collins. It's just a hobby of his, I believe, on the side. Here's the situation. To even the stakes out a little, we will say that it is fresh after Alex Collins has faced the Minnesota Vikings and has had 17 touches. Very specific. Sam, on the other hand, is 5 pints of Guinness deep and out for a night with the lads. Somehow they meet up and Sam challenges Collins to an Irish dance-off. Who wins and why? Cheers, Taylor. Taylor, not our producer that's sitting in the room right here.
First of all, I think he's done exceptionally well to add stakes to this, because there's absolutely no way Sam would ever be doing Irish dancing without at least 5 pints of Guinness being involved. And frankly, I think he's undersold that quite significantly.
So before I have to, I'm the one on the spot.
That's
here.
absolutely true.
I need to give the answer.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I have the information correct in my head. Can you paint a quick picture for me of Sam 5 pints of Guinness deep?
Oh, 5 pints of Guinness is not even close to being enough.
That's not enough.
No, we need to at least double that for me to be even thinking of attempting Irish dancing.
Okay, because I was going to use the context here and say, if Sam is making the challenge,
yes,
he's feeling pretty confident about his Irish dancing skills.
Yes, also
at that point
would need to be significantly more than 5 pints deep to be issuing such a challenge.
Okay, so in theory, if you were actually making the challenge in this hypothetical scenario, I would pick you.
Okay,
and it does help that Alex Collins, who looked spectacular, I mean, he looked really good.
Yes,
at the Irish dancing. The fact that he's a little banged up, the Vikings game, 17 touches, might not be on his game.
You're losing your money there. If you double the amount of alcohol involved, we're at least getting into a scenario whereby I might do it.
With that piece of information, seeing what I saw from Alex Collins, even in a banged up state, okay, I will take Alex Collins.
Yeah.
So if we made this 10 pints, though, you think you might have a shot?
Well, no, 10 pints is we're at least getting to the point where we've got a game now.
You would even ask?
Yes, 10 points. I'm now at the point where I might ask, and I might give it a shot. And to be honest, you're probably going to get better dancing out of me 10 pints deep than you would sober. So we've at least got a ball game now. Now, how are you judging this? Do you get, is it comedy points, style points, or is it just, a purist game? The person that actually did the best Irish dancing? Because if it's the latter, then there's no way I'm ever beating him. But if we're going for like entertainment value or style points or who makes you laugh the most, then I might have a shot.
I wouldn't go for entertainment. I would go for some level of, I don't know what a good Irish dance looks like, but you just kind of know it when you see it, right?
Yeah.
I would want to know it when I see it, and maybe you can't give that to me.
No, then I don't have a chance of winning this particular encounter. The amount of alcohol I require in order to get in the game is higher than the amount that allows me to have any kind of technical execution when it comes to Irish dancing.
But if you bring the confidence, one of those things like if you
no
act like you own the place, people will think you own the place.
This is not a case where like just want to is 90% of the thing. You've got to know what you're doing. And I don't know what I'm doing.
All right. Well,
good question.
Sam's talked me out. It's a great question. It's I like the picture that it's painted. I would love to somehow get this scenario to play out at some point.
Well,
so
what
we
you're
gotta
looking
figure that
at
out.
is a guy that's doing Irish dancing versus someone that's drunkenly river dancing next to him.
Training camp tour next year. We don't know where Alex Collins will be. He's bounced around the league. I say we find his team, we get you liquored up, and we see what we can do. I think that
is how we go viral right there.
That is how we go viral. 10 pints of Sam. Neil, that's an easy investment.
Can we copyright that before Barstool steal it as an idea?
I know, right? They love stealing from you, Sam. Next email, guys. I'm not going to play favorites. You're both fantastic. I'm kidding. Sam's clearly superior. See, I shouldn't read sometimes. I should just skip that part. I don't like, who's this, Parker?
Yep.
I don't like Parker already. Do you think Bill Belichick is a good scout? It's obvious that he's a great coach and that he hires and develops great assistants, but he's clearly a good money GM and who gets guys to sign team-friendly deals. And yes, he also does a great job dispassionately moving on from aging players, Richard Seymour, etc. But a lot of his draft picks are fairly suspect, and as often he seems to bring in a good draftee/free agent, he also seems to have as many busts. I would contend that he's not really good at scouting players. He signs guys cheaply and is very willing to move on from bad players, so he makes up for it some. Rather, it's his coaching abilities and the presence of Brady that makes them successful. What do you guys think, and can you bring any PFF college data in to prove it one way or the other?
I think this is a really good question because you're
real quick though. Pete Prisco, our buddy Pete on Twitter, loves to take shots at Belichick all the time.
Take shots at anybody,
at anyone really, but he loves to take shots at Belichick's game management and this and that, and he loves to take shots at Belichick missing on draft picks. I have a little bit of a theory on this whole thing. Let me hear what you got.
Well, go on. What's your theory?
Well, we're saying scout,
yes.
Right? So are we completely taking GM out of it?
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing is basically you're asking in terms of a college prospect talent evaluation, where is he? Because I think the guy points out correctly that he's very good at quickly identifying who does and doesn't work within their scheme,
right.
Getting rid of bad decisions quickly,
right.
Which is a huge thing. I mean, you can make yourself look way worse if you are wedded to the idiot decision you made that is going to cost you games ad nauseum going forward. If you quickly realize that was a screw up and get rid of it, you can miss a lot of times in the time it takes the first guy to realize that he missed in the first place. So, even if you're no better than this guy is as an evaluator, you can fix the problem a lot quicker if you recognize that kind of thing. So I think that's what they do very well. I think that's what the Seahawks tend to do pretty well, with the exception of the offensive line for some reason. So I think he's really good at that. And I think he's pretty good at recognizing what players in the NFL will translate to his system and to his scheme, and being able to bring guys in from outside who have already been in the league. But the college question, I think, is more interesting. So what's your theory?
So I look at him from a GM standpoint, and maybe I'm just answering Prisco's question of he's not a great GM. I think he's an excellent GM because a lot of this whole deal is maneuvering the draft, right? Yeah. And all of the studies through the years are basically nobody is good at drafting. Nobody is like a 65, 70% hit rate. Everybody's 50 at best, or you're more 40, or you're 30, or whatever it is. So because of that, you buy more lottery tickets. You get more draft picks. That is being a good GM. So I give him credit for being a good GM. I used the example a few years back. There was a 3-year stretch where New England, I think it was 2009, 10, and 11 or something, they had 36 draft picks. During that same time, the Jets had 12 draft picks. So if your goal is to come away with, say, 8 good players, it doesn't matter where you even pick. If the Patriots are going to hit, if they hit 8 out of 36, then they get their 8. The Jets have to hit 8 out of 12, which is 67%. That's unrealistic. So the more you draft, the better. He's good at that. As far as the scouting of players, I think he's just, probably middle of the pack. If you're going to say, he brought in Razai Dowling, or he brought in, which was a miss for an early second-round pick. But he also drafted Daron Harmon when nobody even had him on a draft board until maybe the 6th or 7th round. And Daron Harmon's been a pretty good player. So there are many. You have Jordan Richards, who was a second-round safety, which was probably a questionable pick. But for every one of those, there's also another pick that he got right. I mean, in the same draft, you got Devin McCourty and Rob Gronkowski. And I know the Aaron Hernandez thing obviously did not turn out well.
Sort of.
And Brandon Spikes ended up leaving, and there was some off-field stuff with him too. But in the same draft, you got Devin McCourty, Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, and Brandon Spikes. Now, we had a bad one in there, Jermaine Cunningham in the second round. But you can afford to do that when you have that many picks. So I think ultimately it's probably middle of the pack as far as the evaluation part of things. Same things happen with receivers. For years they said they have never drafted a receiver and brought him in and found a good one. Malcolm Mitchell's probably the best one that they've pure receiver that they drafted. Edelman they've drafted as a former quarterback and they converted him. So I'm kind of on the fence with him as a scout. I'm right in the middle. I think he's okay.
Yeah, I think I would lean more to the struggling side of things. I don't think he's terrible. He's clearly not an abysmal talent evaluator, but I think he does have a lot more misses than successes, and he seems to be a guy that takes shots on people. He's one of these guys that you have to applaud because he has absolutely zero care for anyone else's board. Right. They're taking guys in the second, third, fourth round that nobody else has got a draftable grade on, which there's something to be applauded about that. But a lot of those guys don't pan out. He takes these guys and no one else has got any kind of stock on, and they don't do anything. I mean, Jerron Harmon is the exception there, but I think most of those guys, Nate Ebner was one that nobody else thought was anything. And everyone's like, wow, Belichick knows what he's doing. He's, blah, blah.
It was just a sixth-round pick, and he's become a good player.
Has he?
He's been a core special teams player.
Special teams ace.
Yeah, but as a sixth-round player.
I'm just saying, if you'd picked him up as an undrafted free agent, maybe. But this is a guy. So
that's where I have more of an issue. The Deron Harmon thing, the Tavon Wilson. So Tavon Wilson was drafted 2012 in the second round. When you draft somebody, and I know the Patriots do things differently. They have a board of 40 guys, and they're like, these are the only guys that we would even look at, whereas other teams might have 100, 200, 300. But you have to know. I think it's best to know what the rest of the NFL feels about these players, because even if you thought that Tavon Wilson or Deron Harmon or Jordan Richards was the next Ed Reed or the next Troy Polamalu, even if you thought that, if you have a pretty good feel that the NFL only values them as sixth or seventh round picks, why not play the draft and not take him in the second round? That's where I have a bigger issue.
At that point, you're intentionally losing value on the pick by taking a guy way earlier than you need to.
Right, because there's clearly someone else on your board that you could have gotten that you liked that high. As far as PFF college data, though, I will say this. 2015 draft, we had Trey Flowers as a potential first-round pick. They get him in the fourth round, and he has played much closer to a first-round pick than a fourth-round pick.
Absolutely.
Early returns on Dietrich Wise, another fourth-rounder out of Arkansas, a guy that we had more as a second-round type of value with even more potential because he just didn't play a full workload at Arkansas. He's off to a great start as well. So they've gotten, again, there's good and bad. I would not call him a poor scout or evaluator overall.
Wise has cooled off a lot since that extremely hot start. The last 3 weeks, he hasn't been particularly good at all.
He has. But, again, for a fourth-round pick, I think there's
4
definitely...
weeks, in fact.
What's that?
4 weeks, in fact. If you look at his season, it's just 4 good games, 4 bad games so far.
Well, there's still some pass rush potential in there.
Sure, yeah.
About Brady making the whole thing work, I can buy into that.
I mean, that's always... I don't think you can separate that. This whole Brady-Belichick thing is just... It's symbiotic. You can't... neither one is the reason. You got to put them both together.
You can't sit in the middle on that stuff.
I am. Haven't done.
Next question. Hey, Steve, and the other guy who talks funny. You might have mentioned this previously when talking about QB grading, but does the situation, down distance, score, time remaining, come into play in your grading? For instance, if a QB is intercepted at the end of the half, a Hail Mary, versus late in a game, late in a close game, it's less detrimental. So, okay, end of the game Hail Mary versus end of the half Hail Mary is the question there. I saw a college game last week in which a team leading by 10 in the fourth quarter put the ball in air on a third down. The pass wasn't bad, but it was tipped and intercepted. Would a play like that get graded more negatively just because of the poor decision to put the ball in harm's way? I understand that might be more of the play calling than on the quarterback, but just curious about how those instances are reflected in the grading. I have an answer because it's quarterbacks, but do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent. You
Yes.
know, all this stuff, we're always taking game situation into account, but not to the point where we're going to blame a quarterback for a play call. You know, if the team elects to put the ball in the air when it was a bad time to do it and they should have run the ball, we're not going to blame the quarterback for putting the ball in the air, other than the fact that the play itself may have been extremely bad. You know,
right.
If he forced a horrible pass and intercepted because of it, that's obviously extremely bad. Yeah, we're factoring in game situation to all of the throws.
Yeah, so I think that's the big thing, especially like a Hail Mary. You're not going to. I think a good example, Deshaun Watson this past weekend, 14 seconds left. If you're backed up that far on your own 10 or 15, you have to take a chance. So even though it was a late-game interception by Richard Sherman that ended the game, that might not fall in the turnover-worthy category for us, that -1 or worse throw. I think he just overthrew a pass. It was more inaccurate than anything. Phillip Rivers threw a late-game interception, last play of the game against the New England Patriots, on a play that he had to throw the ball into the end zone. If he had made that exact same pass any other time in the game or not on a must-make down, it was probably a -2. He threw it right to the Patriots, but it was just, I think it ended up as like a -0.5. It was just an inaccurate throw.
Yeah, like 2-point plays are a good example of that, where there's no throw the ball away and live to fight another down. You know,
right.
It's a 2-point conversion.
Right.
You have to attempt to get the ball into the end zone.
Right.
So you're going to take more risks with it, and you're going to put the ball in greater harm's way than you would if it was 1st and 10 at the 2. You know.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, we do factor that in. I'll tell you where it's not factored in though. If you had these two exact passes that they're the same thing. One happens on 2nd down, one happens on 3rd down. So say it's a 10-yard out. It converts the 1st down. It's against press man coverage. Your guy has a step of separation. It's the same exact throw on 2nd and 10 or on 3rd and 10. Those will receive the same grade. They're not different. The way that you would sort through that later in our world is you would say something like, hey, yeah, Tom Brady is our top-graded quarterback on 3rd down. Carson Wentz is number 2 on 3rd down. And so-and-so is number 1 on 2nd down. But those are the same exact throw, the same exact situation. But we're not going to say, hey, this 3rd down throw is worth more because it's 3rd down. It's the same exact thing. So, good answer. So
the
good
exception
question
there is on shorter goal-to-go or shorter situations to convert 1st down. You know, where a simple hitch that gets you 7 yards on 3rd and 6 might get you a positive, whereas the same play on 1st and 10 wouldn't.
Yeah, so it essentially comes down to, is the defense giving it to you versus are they trying to stop you?
Yeah.
If they're actively trying to stop you, and I mean the coverage is there to stop a 7-yard pass on 3rd and 6, that will get some credit versus your typical, it's 1st and 10, you're playing off coverage, and you're giving a 7-yard curl, which for us would be more of an expected throw.
And are you moving the chains versus just picking up, a chunk of the goal or the
right?
What the heck? The down and distance? What's the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd version of goal to go?
The distance to go?
I guess, yeah. This seems like that should be a catchy phrase.
Next question. Hey guys, Mike Renner fan here.
What?
Boy. He must love the preview podcast with Mike. He must have been really upset about Mike's suspension. Tyler Aldrich. Adding a 3rd leg to this fan race you have going here. Okay, I guess we have to get Mike involved. I was just curious as to how PFF grades fullbacks. Roosevelt next of the Steelers seem to be getting some really good skull-crushing blocks for the entire game against the Bengals. The Steelers media had nothing but praise for how he blocked in the game, but our grade was not what people expected. It was a lot lower than expected for that particular game, which completely baffles Tyler here, Mike Renner fan. Is there any way for you to explain the process that you have for grading fullbacks? So Sam and I did go back and checked all of Roosevelt Nix's blocks for that particular game. And here's what I would say about the Steelers media. I don't know if they know what they're looking at.
Oh,
how's that?
You went there.
Here's what I would say about Nix. Fullback blocks in general. You described this really well, right? It's just throwing your body into a spot that gets in the way of a player. The bigger thing, though, and what we're able to do here at PFF is to look at both sides of the ball. There are a lot of blocks that occur in a game that look like they're skull crushing, that are either standard blocks, they're expected blocks, or what happened in this game was Bengals linebackers were doing a really bad job of playing blocks with the right shoulder. They were always, you want to leave that the shoulder to the gap that you're playing free, and you want to either funnel the ball back to one of your teammates. The Bengals on multiple plays did not do that very well, and Le'Veon Bell was able to open a hole. And it looks, and the fullback's block is the one that's being worked off of, so it's easy on a broadcast or for the media to be like, hey, look, the fullback's opening up this hole, when I would actually call it just really bad defense.
Yeah, a lot of this is violence of the impact for a block does not determine how good or bad it is. Where did the block take this guy? If you just hit him really hard and they fell over in a heap in front of you, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It could be a bad block because you just made the running back cut around this pile of bodies that you created.
Right.
But it's skull crushing. It's a bone crunching hit. It's a huge play, and everyone loves to highlight huge impacts. But you need to actually look at where these guys are going. And there's a lot of plays in that Bengals game where he was kind of losing. He was losing the direction of the impact, but maybe winning the actual contact. He's making a big impact hit on a linebacker, but it's the direction that those two move once they make contact are in the way of the running back. They're cutting across him and making things harder for him. So, yeah, I agree. I
mean, there is something to just throwing your body in the way.
Sure.
But again, that fits in the expected column for us. Like, we expect you to hit a moving target because you're a fullback and that's your job, right? Yeah. Like, for you or for me or the normal human, it might be pretty impressive. But
yeah, I'm not going to take on Vontae's perfect in the hole.
So that's how we do fullback blocks. Here's the other thing, too. There's a lot of blocks that are highlighted on broadcasts that we would consider completely expected, completely standard. They're outside contained blocks. If the defense is trying to take a gap and you're also trying to block him in that same gap, a lot of times it's just a stalemate unless you create unbelievable movement. And those are often highlighted, especially on broadcasts. Oh, look at this great block that sprung it. And it's like, well, the defender's not even trying to beat the block. He needs to keep contained. And those in our world are expected or zeros.
The broadcast just loves to highlight a block that was at the point of attack.
Well, that's true.
If you got a body on a body at the point of attack, they will highlight that up as the reason that the play was successful, whereas usually it isn't.
Right, exactly. So I think that's important to distinguish between. All right, next one. Hi. Good start. As a tall overseas listener, I have split loyalties as to who should get my praise. Should it be the man who deserves it, or give some needed Give some needed begged for pity praise?
Yeah.
Begged for pity praise. That should be like hyphenated. I already criticized your grammar. Another Sam fan. Begged for pity praise. I'm not begging.
You begged.
I'm not begging.
Well, you're not now because things have swung back in your direction, but you were begging.
Well, my true fans just needed a little
begging
push. My question is the long-awaited special teams query in relation to kick and punt units. Do teams run any schemes or concepts that differ greatly, or is it predominantly execution-based? That's from Rob in Edinburgh.
Yes. He also said, P.S., don't glass cow the pronunciation. And what he meant there was exactly what you just did. It is not pronounced Edinburgh.
What did I say before? You said yes.
I know, because I wanted you to say Edinburgh on the podcast.
So I just went with what you said.
No. You went with what you said, and I didn't correct you. It's Edinburgh.
Sabotage.
Well, yeah.
Edinburgh. That's Scotland.
It is, yeah.
So there's just so much. So we went to our Scottish contact, Gordon, to answer this question. This is the most Scottish question and answer in our history.
Well, except how to pronounce Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Sort of. Almost.
Glasgow.
No.
All right, so we went to Gordon. He
Yeah.
is our special teams ace. He is our internal special teams ace. He is the director of special teams here, who also mentions Glasgow.
He does.
And he actually wanted us to call him in. I think he was a little offended.
He was upset that we tagged him in audio-wise to pronounce Glasgow, but didn't tag him in to actually talk special teams. And the reason we didn't do that is simple, because if we got Gordon on to talk special teams, we wouldn't be able to cut him off.
Well, that's the thing.
It would go on for quite some time. So at least in text form, we can edit what he says and just keep it to a brisk reply.
So we are stuck merely with a predetermined statement. A statement from Gordon.
A special team statement to be read to the masses.
Gordon says, and I quote, "It's predominantly execution-based, but while there isn't so much anything that individual teams do scheme-wise, there are little wrinkles that most teams throw in there from time to time. For example, usually it is the gunners who have outside contain on a punt. Sometimes, though, the gunner in the wing, who is the furthest man to the outside of the punt offensive line, will loop after the snap, and the wing will have contain. In that situation, if the return team does not pick up the loop correctly, either the wing or the gunner are likely to close to the returner when he fields the ball, increasing the chance of a fair catch." I think that is fantastic. End quote, by the way. That is fantastic insight from Gordon, special teams coordinator, and maybe something to watch on the broadcast. You know, usually that's when you go to the fridge for the punt. Maybe you're going to watch a few more punts now and see if this team's going to run a little gunner loop.
Yep. And now if we dialed him in, he'd still be talking, and we'd have to hang up on him. That's what we'd have to do.
He sent us 12,000 words of scenarios, and we cut it down to that one. No, he really didn't. That was good. Thank you, Gordon, for your contributions to the PFF podcast, as always. What's this next one?
I don't know, but it's for the great Sam Monson and the other guy, apparently.
This can't be good.
This is our McCarron question.
I guess we have to read it.
Yep.
Hey there, the great Sam Monson and the other guy. So with the Browns' failed trade on McCarron, I had something on my mind. Hugh Jackson has been coaching the Browns for the last 2 years like his job is on the line. He looks in win-now mode. I don't think the current front office shares that notion, and they're fine right now with tanking and getting high draft picks, especially before what is supposed to be a loaded quarterback class. The story is that Hugh pushed for AJ, and he really wanted him in Cleveland, but my theory is the front office did not want AJ, but still wanted to please Hugh. So they made it look like they did everything in their power to get him. 2 high picks for that guy. Come on. And then they just botched it at the last second. Made it seem like a mistake. This front office has traded multiple times in their short time. I can't believe they suddenly forgot how to trade. The point you made earlier today doesn't make sense. As for the PR thing, what should they care? They're the Browns. Bad PR is their thing. Thanks. Itamar from Israel.
I like this. For anyone that doesn't know, the Browns basically had a deal for A.J. McCarron right at the trade deadline with the Bengals. The Bengals forwarded their paperwork to the NFL, which is what you need to do in order to complete a trade, have it officially ratified. The Browns didn't, for some reason. They instead just sent their paperwork to the Bengals and didn't send it to the NFL. In theory, if they had... So they sent it to the Bengals to sign their half of it and to be forwarded on. Had they even gone so far as just CCing the NFL on that email, it would have gone through as a ratified trade. The point that he makes there, the one that I have the biggest time for, is that it's not like this was this franchise's first trade in this power structure. You know, if they'd brought in the baseball people and this was the first trade they'd attempted, I might have some time with the idea of they screwed up some bureaucracy somewhere. There was a little bit of technical execution they whiffed on and it fell apart. But this is a team that's made multiple trades since all those guys have been in the building.
Right.
Why would they suddenly forget that you need to send this on to the NFL in order to have it legitimately go through? That makes no sense to me.
I kind of want to buy this too. I also want... People are trashing the Browns front office, this new regime, not just this general overarching 20 years of Browns hate, but this new regime for not properly evaluating quarterbacks. And they're saying, well, you passed on Deshaun Watson, you passed on Carson Wentz. I would like to think that they're not saying A.J. McCarron's the guy at this point. After evaluating a Wentz and a Goff, a Dak, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, all of these quarterbacks that have come up, Mitch Trubisky, and they've said none of those guys are the guy. A.J. McCarron, though, he's the guy. I could buy this theory. And I also buy the theory that we know that they love getting all these draft picks. We know that they're coming from an analytical standpoint, which goes back to my Belichick statement, that whole, play more lottery tickets. And look, I'm not in this, let's hate the Cleveland Browns for passing these quarterbacks. I'm not in that camp. I think the pick of Deshaun Kaiser was a perfect, low-risk, high upside type of pick. It was their 4th selection last year. If he doesn't hit, who cares? Even if he looked good this year, we're still drafting one this year. We're still going to take a chance on a guy. I'd like to believe all this stuff. I kind of buy it. You're appeasing Hugh, and you take the little PR hit, and you keep your draft picks.
I kind of do. This makes more sense to me than they simply forgot how to trade.
It does.
Which is the bottom line. We talk about Occam's razor, which is the more likely thing to have happened.
Right.
Either a front office that knows how to trade just forgot how it functions for some unknown reason, or they did it deliberately and the whole thing was basically staged to try and appease a coach who thinks they're not doing it all they can to get him a quarterback.
Did they forget how to do it just because it was crunch time, because it was 3:55 and you only had 5 minutes to do it? I mean, did you just forget the CC? I don't buy all of it.
I mean, it's possible, but the other razor, Occam's razor, explains this one. The other razor, though, that doesn't quite fit this situation, but I like, is called Hanlon's razor, which is...
Why are they razors?
This is a philosophical tool, apparently, a philosophical razor. It's a thing. I don't know why it's a razor, but that's what they are.
Hanlon has one.
Hanlon has a razor, which is never attribute to malice that which could adequately be explained by stupidity. So this isn't quite that, because there's no malice involved here. But basically, don't assume that there's a complicated reason for something that could be explained by a guy just being an idiot.
Oh, so that's the complete opposite.
So, yeah, that would be the other way of looking at this.
Right.
Which is, yeah, maybe they did it deliberately, or maybe they're just that dumb.
If it smells like stupidity,
exactly,
it might be.
So I'm siding with Occam's razor on this one. I'm thinking that it's more likely there was a reason they did this than they just forgot how to trade.
Knowing that a lot of front offices do listen to the podcast, I am not here to
call them stupid,
to judge either way. The one point that I would make, though, I am fascinated. We talk about this all the time. Fascinated by QB value. The entire NFL valued A.J. McCarron as a 5th-round pick as recently as 2014.
Yeah.
The entire NFL passed on him for 5 rounds. What has changed since that point that he might possibly, even if it's just one team, might possibly be worth a 2nd and a 3rd rounder?
Well, it's the Jimmy Garoppolo thing kind of writ a bit larger.
Yeah, but Jimmy G was a 2nd-round pick, and you're getting a 2nd-round pick for him. That's straight up value. What did McCarron do?
He was the 62nd overall pick in 2014.
Oh,
and they're going to be getting like the 34th.
Oh, it's a jump up, and you got to pay a lot of money for him.
And that's a big difference. Like, that's basically spanning the 2nd round. So he's basically gone up a round in value.
He at least looked good when he was out there.
So did McCarron. Okay, it ended badly. But here's the thing, right?
He didn't really look that good.
He did. He looked good. McCarron played 5 games, essentially, right? He played the game he came in for Andy Dalton, which is like 10 snaps into the game. He then played 4 more starts, 3 more in the regular season and the playoff game. If you cut off McCarron's performance before the playoff game, you have 2 more games of Jimmy Garoppolo-style play. At that point, you are saying he's Jimmy Garoppolo. The problem is he played 1 extra game. He played badly, let's say. Let's not say what I was going to say. He had 1 more game. He played terribly, and that's your issue, right? But that's basically what I'm getting at with Garoppolo is he never got the chance to have that 5th game. He never had the chance to have the next game where all the bad is there and you go, whoa, what were we thinking? McCarron played well.
McCarron looked okay.
Well, that's what Jimmy Garoppolo looked.
No, Jimmy Garoppolo, as Zach said, was the best player on the field in that Miami game.
Yeah, but that Miami game was what? A half. He was not the best player on the field against Arizona.
McCarron's game against Denver, he had a good scripted drive. I mean, it wasn't spectacular at all. He had a good scripted first drive.
I'm just saying, there was good play from McCarron. If you want to jump on the Jimmy G thing, you have to give McCarron the credit for playing well for 4 games.
All right, next question. This one's addressed to you. Do you want to read it because it looks confusing?
This was quite confusing, but I quite liked it.
Sam, it's for you.
Yeah, Sam, an idea for trick play.
I'll be eating lunch.
It needs a big-armed quarterback, think Derek Anderson, a speedy 4th receiver, think J.J. Nelson. End of the first half, deep in your own territory, less than 30 seconds left. Immediately after first down, the starting quarterback purposely runs into the closest defender / lineman after the handoff and starts shaking his throwing hand, giving it the whole, ow, I've just stubbed my finger deal. Coach calls a timeout. Starter walks to the coach, pulls his helmet up long enough for his mouth to be seen, looks at the coach and says, "My hand hurts," in plain sight of the cameras. Blatantly worried, shocked faces from coaches and backup quarterbacks. Think you were just told your great uncle passed away unexpectedly while playing.
A lot of acting.
What is that, bocce?
Bocce, yeah.
Cut to commercial.
Italian word.
I mastered it. I got it.
Thank you.
Cut to commercial, cut back to starter, headed to the locker room, back up talking to the coach. In plain sight of the cameras, coach says loudly and slowly, without covering his mouth, "Just take a knee." Line up to take said knee, and receiver stands straight up for a second when the ball is snapped. Backup bends down without touching his knee, then suddenly stands up, drops back, and YOLOs to the fastest guy on the field. Half ends, and coach's response to the sideline reporter is simply, "He said his hand hurt." That's all he said. If it doesn't work, you're chucking it deep down the field with almost no time left. If it does work, could win you the game. That's from Gary.
Yeah. The only part I think that's illegal here is the fake knee.
That's your problem.
Right. You can't fake the knee. Now, you can line up in a QB kneel formation.
Yes.
Where does the receiver come in as far as alignment?
He's just lining up regular. Gives it the little stand up straight as if the play is just being kneeled, and then yoink. Yeah,
but here's the other issue. Receivers don't line up wide. Also, in a victory formation, they're all behind. You have the one receiver way behind in like a halfback, deep halfback position.
I mean, you can line him up as a tight end; it would work, or as one of the wing guys. That is not your problem as much as the play being illegal.
You can't fake a knee. You can line up in the formation. So you have to line up in the formation. I mean, I would just why not keep a receiver? You have to set this up all season.
I'll give you a good one though. This isn't going to work. It's illegal. The end. Right? We're dismissing this, but we ran a play, and I don't think it was in our playbook as much as this receiver did this. He tore his knee to pieces years ago. I got hit as he was landing, knee shredded. Wore one of those big metal braces that everyone wears. The lineman deal. Yeah. They're supposed to keep your knee holding together after it's been minced. So you were always a little bit concerned that is his knee really in one piece back under all that thing? So when we were running one-on-one drills, what he did is as soon as the ball was snapped, he goes, and clutches his knee as soon as the ball's been snapped. And you go, ooh, step back. And then he just goes, yoink, and quickly runs past you down the field, wide open, because everyone's going, oh, no, he's wrecked his knee again.
Classic Irish football.
Perfect. That's what I think you should do. You get a guy who's got some knee problems, put him on the big brace, have him immediately clutch his knee after the snap, and then run past the corner. Touchdown. That's a better play.
That's a better play.
Better play. And not illegal, probably.
As you can see here, we are open to all of these innovative ideas. Nothing ever gets better than the Hail Mary from a few weeks back. It is posted. It's posted up on our wall here. And if you guys have some Microsoft Paint art, that you want to send us? Did we have one that we didn't break down? Didn't we get a whole?
Oh, we had a big play, but that just seemed like
was it too much?
Yeah, it was.
Looked into it.
It looked like an actual play that would have required some serious explanation, as opposed to a handy MS Paint.
Yeah.
What's the storyboard is what we've got there.
I mean, there's 12 players on defense, but that's kind of how good this play is.
That's even better. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many players you put on defense.
But that is a 4-slide storyboard of how this play is going to work. The other one was like a page taken from Belichick's playbook that was going to require like an hour-long meeting just to get everyone's head around what it was.
We don't have time for that.
No.
Are you familiar with the old the Polish goal line that Buddy Ryan put into his playbook?
Yes.
It's essentially like late game, and apologies for the name. This was Buddy Ryan's. The Polish goal line was they're going to just throw 15 guys on the field essentially, and stop your run, and make time run out. We're just going to keep stopping it.
Yeah.
And I think the key here is it's got to be, and you talk about game situation. This factors in our grading. You want to have a 3-point lead here, and the team is running a play to score a game-winning touchdown, where the alternative is if they don't get it, they have to kick a field goal. Mm-hmm. So you take the penalty, you just throw 15 guys out there. You're like, oh, we don't know how to count. There's 15 guys, sorry. You stop the play, presumably, and then they have to kick the field goal.
Yeah. I don't know that's going to work in today's NFL.
So there was a play in the last Giants-Patriots Super Bowl. I forget the exact scenario, but the Giants had like 13 guys on the field. And it was a passing play. Brady couldn't find anyone open. I think that he finally completes one or something. No, it was incomplete. But it took like 12 seconds off the clock. And it's like, oh, we'll give up 5 yards to not give up a completion and just give up 5 yards. To take 12 seconds off the clock. I can't remember if the NFL did change that rule since then. You can't intentionally be that blatant about it. But something to keep an eye on. Is that it for today? Mailbag?
Yeah, we're done. We're out of questions.
Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate all the interaction. There's a lot of questions that don't make the cut. We appreciate you guys that have written in. If you haven't made the cut, please keep sending, keep asking, keep getting creative. We're doing this every week. It's podcasts@profootballfocus.com. We also have our beautiful products on the site, PFF Elite and PFF Edge. We can give you guys $10 off any of our products using the promo code PFF10. So just type that in, promo code PFF10 for Edge or Elite monthly. And don't forget, Elite comes with your game grades and the monthly access now, which is great. What else did we have that was going to Elite customers?
Well, you're in the Facebook group. You get added bits of data and bonuses as you go. You get the game-by-game player grades. You obviously get all of the Elite stats, not premium stats, but signature stats are back and on the website if you have PFF Elite. All kinds of goodies.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff. So go check it out, profootballfocus.com. Content's rolling out every single day as well. So thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you guys for our Week 9 preview edition.